officer chooses to make a mandatory demand for a roadside breathalyzer sample, there are certain conditions that the officer has to comply with in order to make that demand lawfully. The first condition is that the traffic stop must be lawful. Police are not entitled to use the mandatory demand provisions unless they have already performed a lawful traffic stop and they're engaged in the lawful execution of their duties. This means that if an officer knocks on your door as part of an impaired driving investigation, the mandatory demand provisions of the Criminal Code are not available to them. In addition, the Criminal Code requires that the mandatory demand be read immediately upon the officer's encountering of the subject, you, in the impaired driving investigation, and that the test be administered immediately. There are practical problems that are posed by the immediacy requirement in a mandatory demand situation. Police officers often don't get the opportunity to work out the type of information that's going to lead to a determination about whether or not the samples are going to be reliable. For example, questions about when you last had a drink, when you last smoked, or when you last had something in your mouth. All of those things are information that police officers routinely ask for in impaired driving investigations to build grounds to make a suspicion demand. But in circumstances of mandatory demands, they often aren't engaging in that type of questioning. And where they're not engaging in that type of questioning, that can lead to concerns that unreliable results were obtained. In order to determine whether or not your test results were falsely elevated or obtained improperly in a mandatory demand situation is going to require a lot of legal knowledge. And so it's important to understand the parameters that prohibit and permit officers to make these types of demands in impaired driving investigations.